Welcome to Monarch Matters, a podcast by Monarch PSG, where we explore the intersections of environmental sustainability, climate action, and social justice. Each episode dives into pressing issues, innovative solutions, and the stories driving change in our communities and beyond. Whether you're an advocate, a learner, or someone curious about making a difference, you're in the right place. Let's transform awareness into action, because what matters to the planet matters to us all. We're bringing you scripted episodes voiced through AI technology powered by AiVOOV and or Voice Studio. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started.
Welcome to today's episode, where we dive into the story of Eagle Harbor, founded in 1925 and incorporated in 1929, a historically Black town in Maryland grappling with the long-term impacts of environmental degradation from the nearby Chalk Point power plant. We'll explore how residents have tirelessly fought for change and how an EPA grant is empowering the community to lead restoration efforts addressing water quality, soil contamination, and seafood safety. This initiative marks a pivotal step toward healing the town's health and cultural heritage while addressing decades of environmental injustice.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on the story of Eagle Harbor, Maryland.
Eagle Harbor?
Yeah, it's a small town facing some pretty big environmental challenges. And our main source for this deep dive is this really fascinating article from Maryland Matters. And you know what? It's about so much more than just data points and statistics. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is about a community that's deeply connected to their land and their history and their fight for a healthier future.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that really struck me right off the bat in this article was this incredibly vivid memory that one of the residents, James Crudup, shares about Seagull Beach.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's a powerful way to start the article, isn't it?
Yeah.
He talks about how pristine and beautiful that beach was when he was young.
Yeah.
You know, a stark contrast to what he sees today.
Yeah.
It instantly makes you feel the weight of the environmental degradation, that personal weight.
It really does.
Yeah.
And speaking of weighty matters, this is where we run into the Chalk Point generating station, right?
Yes. The Chalk Point generating station. A major presence near Eagle Harbor for decades.
Yeah.
And originally, it burned coal,
Oh, wow.
which, as you can imagine, had significant environmental consequences.
Yeah, I would think so.
They've since transitioned to natural gas and oil. But that doesn't mean it's a clean slate by any stretch.
So even with the fuel switch, we're still talking about potential pollution hanging around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, out of sight doesn't mean out of mind when it comes to pollution.
Right. And I'm curious, you know, we're talking about coal, we're talking about natural gas, oil.
Yeah.
Are we talking about different types of pollution when we talk about these different fuel sources?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Coal combustion releases a whole cocktail of pollutants.
Wow.
Heavy metals like mercury and arsenic,
Oh, God.
sulfur dioxide, particulate matter. You know, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Natural gas burns cleaner.
Okay.
It emits less of those harmful pollutants,
Yeah.
but it's still a fossil fuel, contributing to greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
And potentially releasing methane during extraction and transport, which is a potent greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
Oil falls somewhere in between coal and natural gas,
Okay.
depending on the type of oil. But the point is that even something's out of sight, like emissions,
Right.
the consequences can linger, especially for communities that live near these facilities.
And that makes me think about Eagle Harbor's size. This community of only 70 people, right?
Yeah, tiny.
What kind of impact does that have on their ability to deal with these environmental issues?
That's a crucial point. Their small size and their lack of economic clout compared to surrounding areas
Makes it hard.
make it much harder to address environmental concerns effectively.
Right.
They simply don't have the same resources or political influence to really push for change.
They don't have the lobbying power.
Exactly.
Yeah. It sounds like they did catch a little bit of a break, though. The article mentions an EPA grant, right?
Yes, and it's a significant one.
Yeah.
The Environmental Protection Agency awarded $370,775 to Ridge to Reefs,
Wow.
which is an organization focused on ecosystem restoration.
Okay.
And this funding is going to support much-needed data collection
Mm.
on water quality, soil contamination, and even seafood safety in Eagle Harbor.
That's amazing.
It's vital for understanding the scope of the problems
Right.
and creating a targeted plan of action.
So this grant seems to be a major step forward for the community, especially considering their history with Chalk Point.
Uh-huh.
You know, the article mentions that the plant opened back in 1964.
1964. A long time ago.
I can't imagine that process went down easily in a historically Black community during that time.
You're right to bring that up.
Especially.
The mayor of Eagle Harbor is actually quoted as saying they didn't have the political clout to stop the plant's construction back then.
Wow.
Which speaks volumes about the historical context of environmental justice, or rather, the lack of it.
Yeah. And that was all before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was even passed.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of how environmental burdens
Really?
have often been disproportionately placed on marginalized communities.
Yeah. Okay, so even though the plant isn't burning coal anymore,
Right.
and they've received this EPA grant,
Mm-hmm.
are we saying Eagle Harbor is in the clear?
Well,
This wastewater discharge issue that the article brings up has me thinking that it's not that simple.
yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You're hitting on a critical issue.
What exactly does that term mean?
Wastewater discharge.
Yeah.
It refers to the release of treated or untreated wastewater from various sources into the environment.
Okay.
And this wastewater can contain pollutants
Right.
like heavy metals, chemicals, and nutrients
Oh, wow.
that can negatively impact water quality,
I see.
harm aquatic life, and potentially pose risks to human health as well.
And is this wastewater coming from the Chalk Point plant?
Wow, that's a great question.
Or are there other...
And it highlights a key point about environmental investigations.
Okay.
We can't just assume things.
Right.
While the Chalk Point plant may contribute to the wastewater discharge, the article states that Eagle Harbor ranks high for wastewater discharge in general,
Oh, wow.
impacting vital resources like Coleman Creek.
Mhm.
This suggests that there could be multiple sources contributing to this issue,
Okay.
including residential septic systems.
So it's not just about the big industrial facility.
Right.
The community's own infrastructure could be playing a role in this pollution, too.
Exactly. And that brings us to the community's proactive response.
Oh, okay.
They've developed a 2025 sustainability plan,
Wow, good for them.
which is really impressive.
Yeah.
This plan focuses on stabilizing Coleman Creek
Okay.
and addressing those failing septic systems.
That's great.
It shows that they're not just sitting back and waiting for outside solutions. They're taking ownership of their future.
That's awesome. It makes me think of the article's mention of seafood being culturally important to Eagle Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
That must be tied into their sustainability plan somehow, right?
You're spot on. The grant-funded research will also examine contamination in local seafood.
Oh, okay.
This isn't just about abstract environmental data. It's about people's lives
Yeah.
and livelihoods.
Yeah. So for the folks in Eagle Harbor, this research is about more than just numbers on a page. It's about the food they eat,
Exactly.
their traditions, and even potential economic opportunities tied to fishing and seafood.
You got it.
That's what brings the human element of this whole story home.
You're absolutely right. It shows how environmental health is intrinsically linked to social and economic well-being.
For sure. And speaking of the past, the article briefly mentions a 2016 lawsuit against NRG Energy,
Yeah.
the former owner of the Chalk Point plant. Can you refresh our memory on that?
Certainly.
Yeah.
The lawsuit was brought against NRG for pollution violations related to the plant's operations.
Okay.
They ended up paying a $1 million penalty
Wow.
and committing to environmental restoration efforts as part of the settlement.
Okay, so there were consequences, but I have a feeling there's more to unpack here.
Yeah.
What lasting impact did this legal battle have on Eagle Harbor?
That's where we start to dig a little deeper. While the penalty and the commitment to restoration were significant, the reality is that many residents still feel the effects of years of pollution.
Oh, wow. So it's not as simple as a company paying a fine and everything magically going back to normal.
No, not at all.
There are long-term consequences for the community that might not be so easily addressed.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this case raises some important questions about the effectiveness of legal actions in achieving true environmental justice.
Yeah. What does it actually take to restore a community after years of environmental harm?
That's the million-dollar question.
This whole situation really emphasizes the need for real, lasting solutions.
Yeah.
And it brings to mind Fred Tupman, the Patuxent River keeper, who's quoted in the article.
Oh, yeah, Fred.
He had some interesting things to say about community-centered restoration, right?
He did. His perspective is vital here. He stresses that restoration efforts must be driven by and for the community.
Okay.
It can't be about large organizations coming in with prepackaged solutions.
Right.
It has to be about empowering the people who live there to take ownership of the process and shape their own future.
So it's about recognizing that the community possesses valuable knowledge about their environment and their needs.
Yes.
It's about their voices being heard and incorporated into every step of the restoration.
Exactly. And that's a key tenet of environmental justice, ensuring that those most impacted by environmental issues are leading the charge for change.
That's awesome. Their voices need to be front and center, not overshadowed by larger organizations or outside interests.
Absolutely.
It's about giving them the tools and the agency to become the architects of their own solutions, which I think circles back beautifully to the EPA grant and the potential it holds for Eagle Harbor.
I agree. That grant and the data it provides has the potential to empower the community to advocate for themselves more effectively.
Yeah.
It's a step towards giving them the information and the resources to push for real change.
It feels like we've only scratched the surface of this story. This data, the community's response, the legal battles, it all points to a much larger conversation about environmental justice and what it truly means to restore a community.
You're right. And this is where things start to get really interesting.
Let's take a quick pause here and then dive even deeper into this in the next part of our deep dive. You know, as we're talking about Eagle Harbor and the challenges they face, it makes me wonder, are these issues unique to this one small town, or are we looking at a much bigger picture here?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a question everyone listening should be asking themselves. Sadly, what's happening in Eagle Harbor isn't an isolated incident. It reflects a much broader pattern of environmental injustice that we see playing out across the country and even globally.
So when we talk about environmental justice, what are we really talking about? What does that term actually mean in a practical sense?
At its core, environmental justice is about fairness and equity. It's about recognizing that everyone, regardless of their race, their income, or their zip code, deserves to live in a healthy environment. Unfortunately, the reality is that marginalized communities often bear a disproportionate burden of environmental harm. They're more likely to live near polluting facilities, to have limited access to clean water and air, and to experience the negative health impacts of environmental degradation.
It sounds like we're not just talking about pollution here. It's about the systemic issues that create these inequalities in the first place.
Exactly. It's about understanding the historical context, the power dynamics, and the economic factors that contribute to these disparities. It's about who gets to make decisions about their environment and who has the resources to protect themselves from harm.
So this goes way beyond just cleaning up a polluted site. It's about addressing the root causes of environmental injustice and creating a system where everyone has an equal chance to live in a healthy and thriving environment.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that these issues are interconnected. Environmental problems don't exist in a vacuum. They're intertwined with social justice, economic justice, and even political power.
Which brings us back to Eagle Harbor and that EPA grant. Do you think that funding is enough to actually address those deeper systemic issues?
It's a good first step, but it's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
The grant provides resources for data collection and analysis, which is crucial for understanding the extent of the problem and identifying potential solutions. But it's what happens after that data is collected that really matters.
So it's about how that information is used to empower the community, to advocate for themselves, and to hold polluters accountable. It's about translating data into action.
Precisely. And that's where community engagement becomes absolutely essential. The residents of Eagle Harbor need to be at the forefront of any decision-making processes. They need to have a voice in shaping the solutions and ensuring that those solutions address their specific needs and concerns.
That makes me think about what Fred Tutman said about community-centered restoration. Can you elaborate a little more on what that looks like in practice? What are some of the challenges and successes of this approach?
Sure. Community-centered restoration is about shifting the power dynamic. It's about recognizing that the community possesses valuable knowledge about their local environment, their history, and their needs. It's about incorporating their perspectives, their values, and their priorities into every step of the restoration process. One of the challenges is ensuring that this approach is truly authentic and not just a tokenistic gesture. It requires building trust, fostering open communication, and creating a space where community voices are not only heard, but genuinely valued and acted upon.
So it's about moving away from a top-down approach where experts come in and tell the community what's best for them. It's about collaboration, partnership, and shared decision-making.
Exactly. And when done right, community-centered restoration can lead to more effective, sustainable, and equitable outcomes. It can empower communities to take ownership of their environment, to build resilience, and to create a future that reflects their values and aspirations.
It sounds like a powerful approach, but I can also imagine it takes a lot of time, effort, and resources to do it right.
It definitely does. It requires a commitment from all stakeholders, including government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and the community itself. And it's important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Every community is unique, and the approach needs to be tailored to their specific context.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where the community's knowledge and expertise are combined with scientific understanding and technical resources. It's about bridging that gap and creating a true partnership for change.
Yes, and that's where organizations like Ridge to Reefs play a crucial role. They can act as facilitators connecting the community with the resources and expertise they need while ensuring that the community remains at the center of the process.
It sounds like they're playing a delicate balancing act, making sure everyone's voice is heard and their needs are met.
Absolutely. And their work in Eagle Harbor is a great example of how this type of collaborative approach can lead to positive change. It's about empowering communities to become the architects of their own solutions.
It's about recognizing that they hold the key to creating a healthier and more just environment for themselves and future generations. As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I can't help but feel like we've uncovered more questions than answers.
That's often the case when you really start to explore complex issues like environmental justice. It's not about easy solutions or quick fixes. It's about grappling with systemic problems and understanding the interconnected nature of environmental, social, and economic challenges.
But I also feel a sense of hope. Seeing how the community in Eagle Harbor is coming together, how they're fighting for their right to a healthy environment, it's truly inspiring.
It is inspiring. And their story is a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, there's always room for hope, for resilience, and for positive change.
And that's a message we all need to hear. Let's take another quick pause here, and then we'll come back to wrap up our deep dive into Eagle Harbor and explore what their story means for all of us. As we've been going through the story of Eagle Harbor, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Their fight for environmental justice. It isn't just about their one small town, is it?
It really isn't. No,
Yeah.
it's like a microcosm of this much larger struggle that's happening all over the place.
Yeah.
In communities across the country and the world.
So what can we learn from Eagle Harbor's experience? What are the broader implications of their fight for environmental justice?
Well, one of the biggest takeaways for me is the importance of community voice.
Yeah.
And agency. Eagle Harbor's story just really underscores how crucial it is for communities to be empowered,
Right.
to participate in decisions that affect
Their lives?
their environment and their lives.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about experts or government agencies coming in and kind of dictating solutions.
Right. It's not a top-down approach.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that the community has knowledge.
Expertise.
They have expertise.
Yeah.
And they have a right to self-determination.
It's about making sure that the people who are most affected by environmental problems have a seat at the table
Yes.
and a real say
Absolutely.
shaping the solutions.
And that requires a shift in power dynamics.
Yeah.
A willingness to listen and learn from communities.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of power dynamics, Eagle Harbor's story also highlights this kind of uncomfortable truth about who often bears the brunt of environmental harm.
Yes, it forces us to confront those systemic inequalities
Right.
that have led to marginalized communities being disproportionately exposed to pollution,
Yeah.
to environmental hazards, and to climate change impacts.
It's a reminder that environmental justice is inextricably linked to social justice
Absolutely.
and economic justice.
It's all connected.
And that we can't address environmental problems effectively without addressing those underlying issues of
Poverty, discrimination,
lack of resources.
lack of access to resources.
It's about understanding that these issues are all interconnected and that creating a truly just and sustainable society requires this holistic approach
Yes.
that tackles these root causes.
100%.
Ah,
And that means challenging the status quo,
right.
questioning assumptions, and being willing to dismantle systems
Whoa.
that perpetuate inequality.
So where do we go from here? What can we as individuals do to support communities like Eagle Harbor in their fight for environmental justice?
Well, the first step is awareness. Educate yourself
Right.
about environmental justice issues in your own community and beyond.
So it starts with opening our eyes to the realities of environmental injustice.
Yes.
And understanding how these issues are playing out in our own backyards.
Exactly. And once you have that awareness,
Okay.
you can start to take action.
How?
Support organizations that are working on the front lines
Yeah.
of environmental justice.
Okay.
Get involved in local initiatives. Advocate for policy changes
Right.
that promote equity and sustainability.
So it's about finding ways to use our voices, our resources, our influence.
Our time, our money,
Yeah.
our skills.
To create positive change.
And it's about being willing to challenge injustice wherever we see it.
And remember, even small actions can make a difference.
Absolutely. Talk to your friends and family.
Right.
Share information on social media. Make conscious choices about the products you buy
Yeah.
and the companies you support. Every step we take towards a more just and sustainable world matters.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the story of Eagle Harbor, I'm feeling a mix of emotions. There's sadness and anger at the injustices that they've faced, but there's also a deep sense of admiration for their resilience
Our strength.
and their determination.
I agree. Their story is a powerful testament to the human spirit, to the power of community, and to the unwavering belief in a better future.
And it's a call to action for all of us.
Yes.
We can't afford to be complacent
No.
in the face of environmental injustice.
We have to act.
We have a responsibility to stand up, speak out, and fight for a world where everyone has the right to a healthy and thriving environment.
And their story reminds us that change is possible.
Yeah.
When we come together, when we raise our voices, when we demand justice and equity,
We can make a difference.
you can make a difference.
So let's take inspiration from the people of Eagle Harbor and let their fight fuel our own commitment to creating a more just and sustainable world for all. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for what's right.
Calling all educators, students, and community members. Join Monarch PSG, the District Heights Sustainability Committee, and Prince George's County Public Schools for a transformative virtual environmental justice workshop. Join us live on Tuesday, February 4th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. This powerful workshop will explore critical topics like food justice, energy equity, green jobs, and more, plus practical ways to integrate environmental justice education into your curriculum. The event will also spotlight the town of Eagle Harbor, a historic African-American community founded in 1925. Hear from an incredible lineup of speakers, including Nicole Jackson, Principal Consultant at Monarch PSG and Senior Climate Justice Fellow at UMD, Larry Davis, CEO of Green Mechanics, Brittany Drakeford, Director of the Capital Market, Charles Romani from the EJ Lab at UMD, Joshua Smalley, CEO of Truly Solar, Anton M. Thompson, Executive Director of Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition, Yolanda S. Bonner, Associate Director from the Institute for Market Transformation, Christina Kwok, Ph.D., Research Director at Unbounded Associates, hosted by Antonio Hernandez from the Hip Hop Caucus. This is an event you don't want to miss.